Okay, it's now 6 o'clock, October 15, 2012, and it's time to call this regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D to order. Mr. Overfeld, we have a quorum, correct?
Yes, sir, we do.
Let the record show that a quorum of the board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This time, if you'd stand for opening ceremonies. First, a moment of silence to reflect in your own way. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. That brings us to agenda item 4, which is public comments. I have one person signed up, correct, Ms. Falcone? Yes. One person. Before that person speaks, let me just remind everyone that the board encourages comments from citizens of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so at this time. The board asks that comments pertain to public education issues and be no longer than 3 minutes. And also remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on our agenda for tonight's meeting. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion until the appropriate time during the meeting. And also on complaints by students or their parents, they may be heard in accordance with policies FNG local and FNG legal and FNG local. For employees, policies DGBA legal and DGBA local. Citizens, policies GF local should be followed by a chain of command. If a resolution cannot be achieved administratively, the person may appeal the administrative decision to the board as a properly posted agenda item. With that said, Ms. Hipólita Beatriz B. Vallejo, is she here?
Dr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, the members of the board, I have a letter that I would like to share with you all. I don't know that it's up to the 3-minute limit, but I'd like to bring this up. I come before you to remind you that our citizens wanted a change when you were voted in. Citizens were told everything will be open and it would be fair, but it is still business as usual. Friends and family, compadres and comadres are still being hired, and letters of rejection are still piling up. Before positions are advertised, the community knows who has been promised the job. Why go through the motions of asking people to apply when you already know who is to be hired? It seems that only some are entitled to the piece of the pie, but I too would like a piece of that pie. I ask you, what do I need to do to get it? Apply? What for? It doesn't make any sense. Administrators and teachers alike are hired and placed in positions, sometimes as interns or long-term substitutes. Then our school district waits for them to take and pass tests required by the certifications. Some have tried more than 3 times and still cannot pass the tests. And all along, we have a bunch of dummies who seem to be wrapped up in paperwork and certified, waiting for an opportunity that will never come, collecting rejection letter after rejection letter. Recently, 2 ladies from Laughlin Air Force Base asked me if math and science teachers were needed. When I told them about the positions available, I encouraged them to apply. I was told, we have applied. We have not even rated an interview. And to top it all, they may have to wait up to 6 months for a rejection letter. There are more than 40 long-term substitutes. Some do not even have the 60 college hours. And on the sidelines await certified people begging for at least an interview. What is wrong with this system? Some positions have been up 6 times. Forget about asking for applicants. What's the point? The point is, it's business as usual. Nothing has really changed. Our school district appears to be broken and it needs to be fixed. If you're not willing to get the job done, then we need to find someone who will. Teachers in the district seem to have lost their academic freedom. They are like ostriches with their heads buried in paperwork, morning and afternoon duty. Some have cafeteria duty during their lunchtime, training videos and after-school training sessions, staff meetings, department meetings, one after the other, and the list goes on and on. The teachers' classrooms have been sabotaged. Why is it that Comstock can be one of the top 3 school districts, and San Felipe Del Rio C.I.S.D. does not even rate? How can that be? I know for a fact that we have lots of talent and that we have better teachers and better aides than Comstock. One of the problems is that teachers are treated like children, which also only insinuates that they're incompetent and unprofessional. How can it be that teachers in our school district do not know better? I don't understand where the mentality of, if you don't like it, there's the door, do it my way, or there's the highway. Where's this mentality coming from? I believe it comes from right here, the board and top administration. Otherwise, it wouldn't be trickling down to the teachers and the aides. But it needs to stop because we are losing great teachers because of this. The San Felipe Del Rio C.I.S.D. motto of love it or leave it needs to be put to rest at one of the local cemeteries. Take me, for example. I have 2 department heads, and one likes to dictate what I should do and what I shouldn't do, imposing authority over me using scare tactics so I do not ask questions and I fall in line. I do not even have a say-so in what I want or don't want on a classroom bulletin board. What have we come to? I have no one to listen to my complaints because everyone is related to everyone. I know, blood is thicker than water, but please, friends covering for friends, compadres covering for compadres. I hate to say it, but it is business as usual, and our school system is broken. Right now, it is in your hands, and we'd like for you to fix it. For posterity and so that there are no misgivings, I publicly come before you to tell you, I want to be treated in a dignified manner. I expect professional courtesy, just like all the other teachers, and above all, we all want a piece of that pie. I thank you. I'd like to give you a copy of that, if that's okay.
That concludes agenda item 4, public comments. So it brings us to agenda item 5, information items. The first one, A, being recognition of Ruben Chavita Elementary Student Council. Presenter, Ms. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, and members of the Board of Trustees. For more than 20 years, the National Association of Elementary School Principals recognized the outstanding efforts and hard work of student councils across the nation with the ASCA Honor Student Council of Excellence Award. Since 1987, this prestigious award has honored excellence in leadership, citizenship, and community service. This year, 63 elementary student council groups from Texas were chosen, 1 from Del Rio. The Ruben Chavita Student Council is noted for participating in various community service projects such as their annual Thanksgiving food drive, in which food is collected for the Children's Shelter and the St. Joseph's Food Pantry, and in the annual toy drive and a Christmas party for the children at the Children's Shelter. These are just a couple of activities which have earned them this achievement. Therefore, it is with great pride and honor that I come here this evening to present Ruben Chavita Elementary Student Council and their sponsors with this very distinguished award. I have a letter from the NAPE Foundation, and it reads, Dear Mrs. Hernandez, on behalf of the National Association of Elementary School Principals, NASP Foundation, we congratulate Ruben Chavita Elementary with an Honor Student Council Excellence Award for the 2011-2012 school year. The Honor Student Council Excellence Award, developed by NACE, recognizes outstanding achievement conducted by student councils in the area of community service, student leadership, citizenship, and school spirit. The NACE Foundation commends the support and dedication of the entire school community that enables your student council to achieve this honor. Enclosed is your school certificate, which we have placed in its frame, which we hope will be proudly displayed in your school. The NACE Foundation will acknowledge these excellent schools on our website and publications. Again, congratulations and continued success to yours and Ruben Chavita Elementary. Sincerely, Ernest J. Manio, CEO of the NACE Foundation. At this time, I would like to invite the Ruben Chavita Student Council and sponsors to please come forward for this presentation. And I would like to recognize the hard work and dedication of our 12 student council sponsors. We have 33 children that represent the student council for Ruben Chavita.
Good work, good work.
Good evening. My name is Megan. I'm student council president.
Excellent.
Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent.
Rep, represented good.
Excellent, excellent.
Awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. Keep up the good work.
I want to recognize our assistant principal, Mr. Thomas Cabello, our student council sponsors, Mrs. Patty Benavides, Mrs. Carol Ely, Mrs. Marta Galindo, Mrs. Luisa Zaragoza, Mrs. Deborah Luna, Mrs. Crystal Cardenas, Mrs. Jovita Jimenez, Mrs. Patricia Hernandez,
Congratulations.
Mrs. Bernice Medina, Mrs. Veronica Arredondo, Mrs. Ruby Martinez, and Mrs. Noemi Quintero. If I may ask Mr. Garabedian and Dr. Ackerman to please join us to come forward. We're going to give you the presentation. The trophy was awarded at the TEPSA, which is the state affiliate of the NACE Foundation, at the TEPSA Leaders Are Us conference, and it was awarded to our children, the student council, this last month. So again, congratulations. Thank you very much. I think that we're going to do our picture.
Well, that was outstanding. I think everybody was impressed with that group and their success and their, hopefully, I'm sure, their continued success. Very impressive. That brings us to B on the information items, facilities and operations update. The first one being the Bank and Trust Ramfield construction update. Mr. Salinas and Mr. John Graves presenting.
Well, good evening, Mr. Garabedian, members of the board, and Dr. Ackerman. On September the 7th, the City of Del Rio received competitive seal proposals for the additions and renovations of the Bank and Trust Ramfield project. In your packet, you should have the proposal tabulation sheet, which shows that we had 4 respondents. I also have it on the PowerPoint. They were Vision Construction Company out of Laredo, Texas, Frontera Construction Company here locally, Templeton Construction out of San Angelo, and J.P. Sanchez Construction here locally. The lowest base bid was by J.P. Sanchez Construction for $768,000. And by the way, we did not accept any of the alternates. So seeing that that base bid was still above our contractor construction budget, we moved forward in dialoguing with the city and our architect on value engineering items that we could reduce the cost. And here's the list that we reviewed. The ones with the check marks are the ones that we accepted, which brought down the cost to $86,100 from the proposal, for a revised proposal of $681,900. That was ultimately accepted by the city, and on October the 3rd, the city did sign contracts with J.P. Sanchez Construction for that amount. On that same day, we also gave the notice to proceed, and the job actually got started on October the 9th with a time completion of 179 calendar days. And at this time, if you have any questions, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Graves on the VE items or on the bid tabulation sheet. Mr. Graves.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. We have some photographs before they started work last Tuesday. This was some of the existing canopies that covered the bleachers. Those are being redone. The backstop, all of the restrooms, and the concession stand are also being redone. Again, these were taken last July. And we had our weekly meeting out there last Friday, and that's what it looks like now. The bleachers, the city is going to reuse those bleachers. The contractor actually picked them up, set them up over that wall that you see there on the other side. These bleachers, when they get those other poles down, they'll move those to the outside also. The over on the right are the existing restrooms and concession stand. They will start demolishing those sometime the end of this week. They were in the process, they still had the backstop poles up there. They were in the process of removing them when we were over there Friday. And I just wanted to show you, this is what we had presented last year on the what would be the goals that we're looking for when it's completed. We have new canopies, new restrooms, new concession stand. One of the items that we deducted on the VE items were the parking area that we had as an allowance, and we will have not decided what parking was gonna be done at the time, so we just had it on an allowance. The city is gonna be able to help out on doing that parking. Are there any questions on the Bank and Trust Ram Field?
Questions? Ms. Lozano has a question.
The ones without the check marks, Mr. Salinas,
Yes, ma'am.
are ones that
They're still in the contract.
they're still in the contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, really important to make sure that we have fans. I don't even know if number 4 is, as it relates to the concession stand, or,
That was strictly in the concession stand. We have a big exhaust fan there, so we didn't figure we needed a fan in there.
but, we will still have some kind of circulation,
Yes, the seating area still retain the fans.
and the restrooms also? Would they have some kind of AC?
The concession building has a commercial exhaust hood in there that would overpower the fan, a ceiling fan anyway. So they'll get plenty of fresh air coming through.
Into the restrooms?
Now those have fans in there, exhaust fans, but not ceiling fans.
And not cooling?
No cooling.
Okay.
No, we do have heating. But,
It gets very toasty.
okay.
These are insulated now on it, not like the old ones. Which incidentally, that item number 14, omit the bleacher piers and substitute alternate bleachers. I did receive last Friday a shop drawing on those particular bleachers on it, and I think they're gonna work real good. So we'll be able to save that additional $19,500, it looks like. That'll be up to the city to accept on it, but we are looking at that real hard.
And with that money, we're gonna be adding some heaters back.
Thank you.
Dr. Keys has a question.
Just update me, correct me if I'm wrong, the total construction budget, is that divided 3 ways? Or what's our share of the budget, I mean?
I don't have it here in front of me, but the largest portion is actually Bank and Trust. And then the remainder is shared equally between the city and the school district.
So roughly, we're looking around 1/3 of that total budget, roughly,
Yes, roughly. And that's not the full amount, that's just for the contractor.
right?
We still have to pay the fees for testing and for the architect.
And this is coming out of our budget, correct? Our regular budget?
Yes, it's already been budgeted.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to number 2, Ruben Chavita Elementary construction update. Again, Mr. Salinas and Mr. Graves presenting.
Mr. Graves?
I had a walkthrough Friday at the new library and the gymnasium. They're moving along pretty fast. There are some items that will probably be in about 3 weeks, and talking with the contractor, the library equipment is being manufactured and should be here in about 3 weeks. We're looking at somewhere around November the 15th of being able to move into the library. The painting has started, and, well, let me go through the gymnasium first. The gymnasium, they're finishing up the roofing and completing the exterior walls and the waterproofing. That gets a combination of brick and metal panels on the outside. They have completed some of the framing on the interior walls at the toilet rooms. The plumber's been over there roughing in the plumbing. They're about half finished with the roof. It should be finished in a few days by the end of this week for sure. This is the north side of the library, and most all of the outside is complete on it. The covered walkway, or the enclosed walkway to the library, still needs painting. They have put the glass in there. Installing the pair of doors, floor finish, and completing the air conditioning will finish that walkway. Inside, the painter started last week and did most all of this painting within 1 week's time on it. Did a real good job. The school colors are black and gold, yellow, and so we've kind of carried that theme throughout on it. They're staining some of the interior doors in there now. Some of the windows in the library itself. These are some of the accent walls. And this is a classroom. Are there any questions? Oh.
Questions? No questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings us to number 3, under information item B, and that's update on the status of Avance, with presenter being Mr. Salinas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garabedian. Well, Avance has notified us, you do have the letter attached to my memo, that for the last 2 years, we weren't certain whether they were going to continue to be funded, so we've been doing a year-to-year lease with them at our Old North Heights. They are going to be funded, they are going to be staying here in Del Rio, but because they don't want to stay there for a 3rd year, they're looking for better facilities. Right now, where they're staying at, they have to go from one building to another during inclement weather, restrooms being in the middle, etc. So we've always realized that this was supposed to be a temporary site. We were hoping that they would finally get their funding back to pursue the construction at our Sam Houston site. That's not going to happen anytime soon, so they're opting to look for other facilities at this time. They've given us notice that hopefully they can be out of there by the middle of November. Are there any questions?
Question? Mr. Overfelt has a question.
Just maybe for my benefit, but I know it's out in the portables. Was there a reason we didn't let them use the main building? Was it
Yes,
dangerous or
it wasn't suitable.
suitable in the sense of
And
for their needs or?
for the actual building itself, the structure. It's over 100 years old, and so we're not utilizing it. We closed it up.
Okay.
And then don't we also have to look at the disability accessibility there?
Yes, sir, and that was also another factor, but more than anything, it's just not a suitable building to inhabit at this time.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're now under information item C, information on delinquent tax collections. Linebarger, Gogan, Blair, and Sampson LLP, the presenter, Ms. Sonia Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman. Ms. Sonia Gonzalez is here from Linebarger, Gogan, Blair, and Sampson to present the 11-12 delinquent tax collection, and you were provided with the binder on the information she's going to present. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Ackerman. I'm very pleased to be here today to report Linebarger's delinquent tax collections for this year. I'm happy to report to you that we surpassed last year's collections by a little over $245,000, bringing this year's total delinquent tax collection dollar amount to a little over $1.6 million. And as you can see, page 54 of the report, we've broken it down by fiscal year beginning 07, 08. And you can see a consistent increase year after year, so we're very happy to report that to the district at this time. In addition, we've continued with our special, our mass mailing efforts. We mailed out a little over 18,000 letters throughout this past fiscal year. Have made a total of close to 5,000 outbound collection calls, which have resulted in over 2,700 inbound collection calls, and 21 taxpayers actually coming into our offices, both in San Antonio and Eagle Pass, to visit, to discuss their respective accounts. We continue to monitor all bankruptcies on behalf of the district to make sure that the district's claims are protected, and we monitor those on a monthly basis. In addition, along with the tax office, we do also offer taxpayers payment arrangement options to avoid further legal proceedings. Unfortunately, sometimes we're only left with the alternative to set some of these cases for trial, but it also offers me in particular an opportunity to visit with these taxpayers. So I come down and visit with them 4 times a month at least. They're at the courthouse, and give them an overview of all of their options in order to avoid actual foreclosure and sheriff's sale of their particular properties. We've begun walk and talk campaigns in which we visit local businesses who have multiple years of delinquency and urge them to either get on a payment arrangement in order to avoid actual seizure and sale of their business personal property. But all in all, we have personnel, like I said previously, from our Eagle Pass office and San Antonio office, working all delinquent accounts on behalf of the school district. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions to address any parts of this report. I know it's rather lengthy.
Questions? Ms. Fasano has a question?
I just
Yes,
wanted
ma'am.
to say one thing, Mr. Collins. The increase from the previous year to this year is very significant. We definitely do appreciate all of your efforts.
Thank you.
It's almost $300,000
Yes.
increase.
So whatever you're doing, it's working.
Thank you.
Chavita?
And I just want to thank you. It was a very thorough report, it's very easy, very comprehensive very easy to go over it and check it out. I really appreciate what you're doing. We thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Keyes has a question.
Yes, I mean, I remember my first year on the board, eyebrows were raised because our tax delinquency collection was very low. But as years gone by, y'all have done an excellent job, so thank you. With things the way they are nowadays, with budgets and finances everywhere, every penny counts, and we appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to information item D, information on notice of grant awards for Carl D. Perkins Basic Grant, presenter Dr. Jorge Garza.
Good evening. I'm going to present for Dr. Garza.
Okay, he looks different.
I hope better. Sorry, sir.
Ouch.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's recorded, you know.
I know. It was a joke. It was a joke. We have received our notice of grant award for Kate funds. And for the 12-13 year, we have received $161,717. And in comparison to last year, we have a slight increase of about $7,000. Yes. Do you have any questions?
Questions? No questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to information item E, report on expenditure for the New Mexico football game held on September 7, 2012, as requested by board member. Presenter, Yannicka Valdez, CFO.
Good evening again. The Del Rio High School football team traveled to Carlsbad, New Mexico on September 6th. And the expenditures are broken down for that trip between meals, hotel, charter, and mileage for a total of $11,733.72.
Mr. Messier has a comment or a question?
Yes, I have questions and yeah, I requested that information because, and again, no reflection on coaching staff or anything, but under Texas statute, the Board of Trustees of a local district is given the authority to govern and to oversee the management of the district. And then being one of our goals that we have, continue to be a good steward of the community resources, financial resources. And so, again, I didn't see what I wanted to see. I wanted to see, for example, the number of coaches that attended and the amount that we paid for substitutes.
Oh.
Because, again, it was a 2-day. We left on the Thursday. They left on the Thursday, half a day, and then full day on Friday. But would you be able to revise that amount? Now, the reason I'm making reference to that is because our goals, we have goals from the finance officer, which is you, and one of those is, again, I think is 1.32, that, we have a balanced budget to be able to have the resources for teachers and the personnel and the staffing that we need. But along those lines, we, as a board, as a corporate board, again, we oversee the management of the district. And so that being one of our goals, it should be one of the, it's like a map that we follow. And so if this is going to be expensive, because I saw that amount and it's nothing, but then I didn't see the other part, which is, one thing that we focused on, and for years, I know that, Dr. Keys has been on the board longer than I have, but was, I can quote you, for example, we're paying substitutes $1.2 million a year. And it doesn't make any sense for us to spend so much money and we're taking it out of the fund balance, which, again, a big portion of our budget is coming out of the fund balance. And then the other thing is, I think all of us know, when we focus on instructional goals, you're not going to have the same instruction in the classroom when you have a substitute in the classroom. And so with that being said, this is why I'd like to give you time to revise that amount and come up with the total amount. But more importantly, again, no reflection on staff. I think coaches are doing a tremendous job, and compliments on the game that they just won this past Friday, which was an excellent game. But it's more managerial on our part, that we need to take more of an active approach to be able to not spend as much for next year with plenty of time. I know the schedule was already done and so forth, but this is looking into next year. And again, this is why I would like to give you some time to come up with the amount, because I know that the biggest, to me, substitute pay is already a lot, 1.2 million in past years. And so if we're doing that to ourselves, we're not following the goals that we set. And the goals that we set are an example to the schools. I know we have campus improvement plans coming up, but if we can't follow our goals, how do we expect the campuses to follow their goals? They set up a goal, and it's almost like, okay, well, the district didn't follow their goal, why should we? We need to set the example. And if we're going to be good stewards of the community's financial resources that we have, we cannot be spending more than what we have, because we have an election coming up, and you're elected for 4 years, and we have money to operate for 2 years. So, what's the sense of having it for 4 years? This is what we have to look at, and bringing that amount, that expenditure amount down, so that we can have, again, a solvent district and operate for more years than 2 years, because that's all the money that we have left. So, again, the reason I asked for this is for planning purposes for next year. And again, I don't have the total amount because I don't have the number of coaches that attended, and I know, I've been there, where some positions you might not need a coach, or a substitute rather. Some, yes, they have dual responsibilities of coaching and teaching, and I think that's something that most of us know we put in place because of that. Again, coaches have responsibilities after school, and then sometimes, they have coaching responsibilities. It might be at the middle school, it might be a freshman, but they have teaching responsibilities along with the coaching responsibilities. And so it's twofold. Finances, which again, 1.2 million for substitutes, I think it's a whole lot. And if we're going to be doing that to ourselves, and then the other part is instructional, because you're not going to have the same instruction in the classroom when you don't have a certified, more than likely, you're going to have, a high school graduate or a GED, person in the classroom, and that is not certified to teach that subject. And so, again, this is for planning purposes for next year. But would you be able to bring those amounts for our next meeting?
I can try for our next meeting, if not for sure for the next regular board meeting.
Okay. And that's all. Again, because that's one of the goals that we established, and I think we need to follow that. Thanks for the work there. I just needed more information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I had some questions too, as a former historian. Let's see, this, to the benefit of Ms. Haynes, Mr. Overfelt, and myself, we came on the board May 21st, I believe. This game actually tracks back to a contract that was signed on April the 24th, 2012, by the previous superintendent. Anyone like to see the contract? And the previous board.
I'm not going to give you a rebuttal. The only thing I'm saying is we have a goal, and I don't think we need to spend money that we don't have. And so that's planning purposes for next year. Now, did any board member see a contract before? I did not. Did you, Dr. Keyes?
All I remember is from last year when we had to add on the Carlsbad at the last minute. That came at the heels of the realignment because we lost 3 schools from our district, Martin, Nixon, and Sigaloa. So we had to scramble to find some replacement games at the last minute. And
Maybe this is how it came about, but, I just, if it could be brought to us or we could see it, then we would not approve a contract like that.
Ms. Lozano has a question?
Just to add, I definitely agree with Mr. Mesa. We attend all of these wonderful TASB and TASA seminars that really remind us to focus on our goals. So, I appreciate you for focusing on that. However, I too want to say that I was interested in this only because I wanted to see how we arrived at making a decision to go to Carlsbad. I'm sure there are plenty of really tough football teams in the state of Texas. But I did have an opportunity to speak to Coach Hurley earlier about a different matter, and we got to talking about this, and he gave me a little bit of the history, just like Dr. Keyes mentioned. However, we don't have anything in our policy that requires that the board review this contract. So it would have never come to us anyway. So, there does have to be a level of trust, open communication between the board and the administration. So I definitely agree with you there as well. So I just wanted to add those two couple comments. Thank you.
Mr.
Kirby.
Mr. Overfelt, I think first, had his hand up.
Just right quick, I know at one point, years ago, the only people that at one point were allowed to take charters was the football team, because the Booster Club paid for the charters. They paid the good chunk of it, because I remember as a coach, I wasn't allowed to take a charter because we didn't have the money for it. Did the football Booster Club put any towards this amount here, or is this all district money?
I did see a PO go through from a booster fund, so I would have to check the amount.
Okay, 'cause I'm just curious to see if they had gone in and paid for the charter as they had done in the past there. And I don't know if we want the other sports doing charters, we save that for another time? Another time, okay. So, okay, I'm just curious to see how much the Booster Club put in to offset that district amount.
Okay, I'll find out.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Keys?
Well, the silver lining to all this, and as Mr. Mayor said, we do have to plan, but the silver lining is, I don't think we have to plan for next year. The way things are going, we have to plan for the past, this year. We're going to by district this year. You can see that already. So, maybe extra games, extra travel, but hey, it's a silver lining, okay, hey, be good for the community, for a good reason. Spend money then.
Mr. Chavita, didn't think you
Well,
had
all I gotta say is that, you know, it's, I know it's a long trip, and I think it was a good trip. And scheduling football, games is not just you know, I'm sure that calls were made, and there's a lot of conflicts. There's another thing that, anybody that comes forward to play us, it's a home type of game, and it's a long ways for people to come and play us. So, it's hard to schedule, and it's only a one-time type of thing. We never taken that trip. And I don't think we should be looking into it to see and make a big deal out of it. We spent other money, so maybe we shouldn't have. I remember, a trip that was made by you all the way to Washington, and I didn't know, the board didn't know, and nothing was said about it. And I'm not trying to bring this up, but the thing about it is, I think it was a good trip for the kids. I think that, our kids are, I made, a comment one time that our kids do more than what we do. And for us to be looking because they went to New Mexico, I don't think it's right. I think it was a good trip for them. I think they deserve it. And, so, I don't know. It just, doesn't seem right for us to be, questioning and be overseeing what they're supposed to do. We're supposed to, and I know it says, good stewards of our financial resources. And, but that's one thing that I don't think it's for us to be looking into what our kids. I remember one time, our band was gonna be cut because we went to San Antonio, and, are we gonna do that? It's good for them to participate. So,
Mrs. Lozano, I think, has a question, if you're finished.
that's it.
That's it? That's it. After I spoke with Coach Hurley, I see him standing there in the back. I wonder if he might step up to the mic and kind of provide us a little more information as to how we did arrive, or the
He's way in
coaching
the
staff.
back.
I mean, there was, great discussion and great coordination and collaboration to get this. Sir, please. I think it might be helpful to just kind of share with us how we actually ended up having Carlsbad on our non-district schedule.
Dr. Ackerman, Superintendent, Mr. Board President, board members, I'll just give you a brief history of what happened here. Last year, at the end of football season, I had heard from one of the administrators in the Laredo district that they were going to go 4A. So I had a meeting with Coach Hoffman, the head football coach, and I stated to him, plan on a 10-team district of what we were in already, or a possible 7-team district. If we go to a 7-team district, we got to find 4 non-district games. So he and I went to work on that, and we got Kerrville, South San, Samuel Clemens, and San Antonio Brackenridge as preseason verbal. You can only do verbal at that point. You can't do anything, nothing's in concrete until you sign a contract, okay? Well, in January, when the realignment opened, we went to the regional center, and everybody opens up the package, comes on the web at 9 o'clock. Everybody gets the same information at the same time. Well, right before that, about 8:30, we went around and we talked to the different schools, the different coaches. We didn't see one of the coaches that committed to us. So when the packet opened at 9 o'clock, we had 3 commitments. We couldn't find the 4th game. the coach the night before of that school resigned. He wasn't at the meeting. So at that point, if you go into the realignment, because it's every 2 years, you at least set up your first 3 games, not knowing if you're going to be in a 10-team, 7-team, 16, 18 district, okay? So that's what happened. Well, by the time we got the news, everybody else had already had their first 3, 4 games of non-district. So we were stuck. We didn't have a game. So we came back, we got on the phone that day, started calling different schools throughout the state. Granbury said, we'll play you. I called Jim Slaughter, he's the athletic director in San Angelo. He said, you can come here on a Saturday afternoon, play. We'll treat it like a playoff game. You both meet, neutral spot, yada, yada, yada. And we set it up. The next day, Granbury called back and said, we found a school in Fort Worth. We're not coming all the way down there. You know, people don't travel like us, so they don't understand that, okay? So we looked at other schools. And so that's Granbury. Galveston Ball called us, said, we'll play you, but you got to go to Galveston Ball twice. They're not coming here. Well, that's clear on the other side of the state. We better off going to San Diego than Galveston Ball, right? We could have played in the Tom Landry Classic in Dallas, but we would have had to go there twice, 2 years in a row, which would have cost our school district a lot of money, okay? So what I did was I got on the MapQuest, and Carlsbad, New Mexico is 324 miles from here. Amarillo is, I kind of picked the outer point. There was nobody in between, okay? 455 miles to Amarillo. Galveston was 398. Brownsville is 380. And Dallas is 426. And actually, Carlsbad, even though they're across the state line, was closer than any other area we could have gone to. So I came to the superintendent and I said, this is our situation. And I told him about it. We kept looking for schools. There wasn't anybody, okay? So we decided to go to Carlsbad as our trip. Even though it's out of state, it was closer than anything we could have got at that time. Financially, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about this was the closest trip for our kids to go to. And that's how that came about. We had it set up. The ball got dropped at the last minute, and we had to scramble. Now, they're coming here next year. So it was a one-time trip for us. They're returning the favor. We don't have to go to Dallas twice. We don't have to go to Galveston twice.
September the 6th, 2013, apparently, is when they're coming, according to the contract.
So that's the history of what happened there.
Thank you, Coach Hurley.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
And I really appreciate it, Coach Hurley, the explanation. But again, one of our jobs is to oversee the management of the district, and I know that, we've looked at, for example, staff development, the same thing. We take teachers out of the classroom, hire substitutes in their place. And so that's something that that's our duty, to oversee the management as a corporate board. That's our duty. I would not run my personal finances if we didn't have the money. And that's something that we're looking at, and I'm looking at very carefully. But I really appreciate the explanation that was given to me, and that's wonderful. And again, this is for planning purposes. I'm glad they're coming here next year.
But bottom line is that it was a must. We just couldn't find any games close by. And like I said, it doesn't happen every year. This is the first time we traveled that far. Even though we travel to San Antonio and Laredo, anytime we want to play a 5A ball, we're just isolated. It's too far to. So it's hard. And then in San Antonio, if they can find a game amongst themselves, who wants to travel? So it just so happened that we needed a game, and that was about the only place that we could have played.
It's the nature of the beast for Texas. Texas is so huge. Y'all realize it is closer from El Paso to LA than it is from El Paso to Houston? Think about that. That's how huge Texas is.
Other comments, questions? Everybody clear on the history and the impact and the cost? Okay, very good. brings us to information item F, attendant rates to date by school. Mr. Reno Luna presenting.
See that picture again, Mr. Lee?
Oh, sure. This is the MIS staff. Nadine Garcia, Cheryl Pond, Monica Rubio, myself, Mr. Richard Perez, and Ricardo Cáceres. And these reports that you do see tonight will be on the web until the next regular board meeting where we replace them. We'll have the regular board on. Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Ackerman, honorable board members. My name is Rene Luna. I'm the MIS director. And tonight I come with data for you in regards to the enrollment count and ADA. We'll begin tonight with the enrollment count for the district. And you'll see that currently we have 10,459 students. Dr. Ackerman and I were talking about that earlier tonight, and it's usually 10,200, 10,300. So this number is great news. Also tonight, we're talking about ADA, the average daily attendance. What we did for your purposes and for historical purposes, we have the 2011-2012 school year down at the bottom with the comparisons for this current year. We have August 2012 right over August 2011, September 2012 over September 2011. There is a skew, however. Last year, school started August 22nd. This year, we started August 27th. So if you do compare, it's difficult to compare 10 days in regards to 5 days. So what we're looking at is September 2011 versus September 2012. And you'll see that we have great numbers. I'm just going to go through and read the numbers right off the list. Del Rio High School, 96.44. Del Rio Freshman, 96.83. Del Rio Middle School, 97.34. Garfield Elementary, 98.1. North Heights, 98.42. San Felipe Memorial, 97.88. Lamar Elementary, 98.66. Irene Cardwell, 97.2. Buena Vista, 98.57. Chavita Elementary, 98.25. Calderon, 98.05. And Lonnie Green Elementary, 98.03. In ranking secondary, in first place, we have San Felipe Memorial, 97.88. Del Rio Middle School, 97.34. Del Rio Freshman School, 96.83. And in fourth place, Del Rio High School, 96.44. For elementary, first place goes to Lamar Elementary. Second place would be Buena Vista. Third place, North Heights. Fourth place, Lonnie Green. Fifth place, Ruben Chavita. Sixth place would be Garfield. Seventh, Calderon. And eighth place, Cardwell Elementary. Any questions?
On the face of it, I mean, it's encouraging. I think everybody agrees it's an encouraging bump from last September to this September. I'm kind of curious. I don't know if we have any principals that maybe want to come up and tell us what they're doing to push attendance this year. I know attendance isn't always a priority.
I'm the principal at Lonnie Green Elementary.
You want to come up to the podium?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Jane Berial. I'm the principal at Lonnie Green Elementary, and what we're doing this year is we're at 15 days, we give them a little treat, a class treat, maybe a little Debbie snack with a juice or a popcorn party. So we've been tracking that every day. We make a big deal. Whoever reaches the first 15 days of perfect attendance, we announce it and make a big deal out of it. And then at the end of the 6 weeks at our award assemblies, we present a big spirit stick. You know, they had the highest attendance rate for that 6 weeks. So that's what we're trying this year.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
What about a secondary principal? I don't think y'all are giving.
Freshman school, that's very,
That is.
very impressive.
Somebody wanna,
All right.
yeah, there's I think everybody probably saw it, but on the freshmen, there's a jump of, it's more than a percentage point from September to September.
And from the previous year, they were like at 92%. So we've really made a lot of gains. And this is a collaborative effort between the staff, including our secretaries. We start since real early, about 8:30. We have a report to find out who is absent. So we start calling everybody. We divide the list. We start calling to make sure that everybody gets to school. And then we also have a lot of incentive for the students. We have a weekly attendance drawing of $25 gift card. We also have, like Ms. Villarreal, I'm sorry, Ms. Villarreal. Like Ms. Villarreal said, for every 15 days of perfect attendance, we have an incentive for the students, then for 20 days. And then at the end, for 50 days perfect attendance, they have dunked the principal. So if the class gets to 50 days, then they'll have dunk the principal. We also have a pie throwing contest for the security guards. So all the classes are working to have that. But like I said, it's a collaborative effort. We start since 8:30 in the morning, calling kids to make sure they're at school, and then we have all those incentives for them.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I want them here at school, so we'll do whatever it takes. Thank you.
Who had the biggest jump from September to September? Anybody catch it on here? Who had the single biggest jump? Was it
Cardwell? Cardwell? Or North?
Cardwell went from 95 to 97.
Yeah, Ms. Valdez is the numbers person. What do you see? Where's the biggest?
I need my Excel. I can do it a lot faster.
Doesn't have a dollar sign.
Well, it does mean dollar sign.
Big dollar
Well,
sign.
at Cardwell, we have an attendance committee. We look at our parents. We cannot give food to our students, so we cannot give them Debbie's, and we cannot give them any drinks. We can't do any of that. So our attendance, if we're above the 96%, we're doing great. And that's even above the Head Start standards, which go to about 90%. So at our campus, we're trying to meet the district goal and stay above 96, hopefully 97%. But a lot of the things that other campuses can do, we are not allowed to do on our campus. But we do have an attendance committee, and we do meet with our parents on a regular basis. If the students don't come to school, we will make home visits and constantly meet with them.
Who does the home visits? Parental involvement?
Parental involvement. If the parents cannot come to the school, we have our Head Start vans, and we will transport the parents to the campus and meet with them there at the campus.
Other questions? Mr. Messick?
I think the numbers are very impressive, and again, it goes with the creativity that principals have at their campus, because I've seen so many different things that they do when they have the awards assembly to recognize those students with perfect attendance. And so the numbers are very impressive, and I just want to thank everyone, teachers, parents, and principals, and mostly students, for attending school. Thank you.
It's an encouragement.
Let me say this, it's great to see a lot of the principals. I know you're busy, receiving the students and then, of course, at the end of the day, they're outside, just helping out with the traffic and all that type of thing. I see Mr. Cabello out there all the time. My congratulations to you. Be careful, they're liable to run over you going to the States. But we sure will thank you. And really, one thing that I'd like to mention is that at the sixth grade campus, there's a crossing guard. He's something out of this world. I tell you what, he makes you feel good. I go up there and I drop my granddaughter, and he'll be out there, how you doing, sir? Have a good day. And he's telling everybody that goes by there. And he goes up there and he says, welcome, and he tells the kids, and goes up in there, crosses them, and he tells them, I tell you what, it's amazing. You ought to go see him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've had that experience too. He's very animated, calls people by name.
It's great.
Is it like that commercial with that bodybuilder, you know?
Well, he goes up in there, he does all kinds of hand waving.
Well, we all know attendance is important on various levels, funding related. If they're not instruction, if they're not in the classroom, you can't teach them. At the elementary grades, of course, for accountability, I mean, for all different reasons. So this is really, it's encouraging. I think all the board agrees that this is a real good sign. So whatever's going on, kind of, we got a glimpse of it, right? Whether it's parental involvement aids or phone calls or the fun stuff at the elementary grades, I think that's good. Just keep it up and see where it looks like next month and the months after. Anything else? Move on? Okay. Okay, that brings us to information item G, discipline report to date by school. Ms. Ana Leyva presenting.
Mr. President, Dr. Ackerman, and board members, sorry. For September, we had 3 drugs, violation code of conduct 97, assaults 2, no weapons, no gang violence, no terroristic threats, no sexual assaults off campus, no conduct punishable as a felony. Fights, we had 12. Compared to last year, we had 22. Number of suspension days, out-of-school suspension, 125.5 days. Number of suspensions day in-school suspensions, 14.5. Days of suspensions, 140. Number of suspension students, 54. And total expulsions, 3. This is the SGLC report. And Del Rio High School had 1, Del Rio Middle School had 2, and there was a total of 3. And none were returned. The discipline report by offense. This one's a little bit different this time. The principals requested another role to be added. At Del Rio High School, we had 0 cases for drugs. Violation code of conduct 46. Terroristic threats 0, fights 6. And there was only 6 students involved. Let's see, when it says students involved in fights, that is what the principals wanted added, the administrators. For freshmen, we had 2 drug cases, but 7 students were involved in the drug case. For assaults, we had 0, sexual assaults off campus 0, violation code of conduct we had 30, terroristic threat 0, fights 1, but 2 students were involved in that fight. Del Rio Middle School, we had 1 drug case, 3 students were involved in that drug case, 2 assaults, 0 sexual assaults off campus, violation code of conduct 18, terroristic threat 0, fights 3, but 6 students were involved. San Felipe Memorial, 0 drugs, 0 assaults, 0 sexual assaults, 1 violation code of conduct, 2 fights, and only 2 students were involved. And Garfield had 2 violation code of conduct. Drug cases for September were 3. Students involved in the drug cases were 10. Assaults 2. 0 sexual assaults. Violation code of conduct we had 97. Terroristic threat 0. Fights 12. And students involved in the fights were 8. And then Del Rio High School, For the suspension days had 13.5, out-of-school suspensions 13.5, in-school suspension 0, expulsion 0. Freshmen had 52 suspension days, 52 out-of-school suspension days, 0 in-school suspensions, and 2 expulsions. Darrell Middle School had 61.5, 48 out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions 13.5, and 1 expulsion. San Felipe Memorial had 12 suspension days, 12 out-of-school suspensions, and 0 in-school suspensions. Lonnie Green had 1 suspension day and 1, Lonnie Green had 1 in-school suspension. The total suspension days was 140, out-of-school suspensions 125.5, suspension days in ISS, in-school suspensions 14.5, and the total expulsions for September were 3.
Questions, comments? Ms. Lozano has a question.
It just looks like the first one that you presented, which is page 2 in our binder here, is the same thing as what the teachers
Requested for clarification.
The second one, the SGLC,
Right, it's the same information, so I would just recommend you just remove one of them, so you don't.
Oh, okay. Just do one of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item 6, which is a consent agenda, consent A and consent B, of course. Under consent A, you have the minutes from the September 17th regular meeting, September 10th special called meeting. So on that one, does any board member wish to pull any item from consent agenda A for discussion? Okay, is there a motion to accept? Okay, Ms. Lozano has motioned, I will second. All in favor by a show of hands? Mr. Chavita, it's unanimous, motion carries for consent A. Under consent B, does any board member wish to pull any item from consent agenda B for discussion? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the items on consent agenda B? Ms. Lozano has motioned, I'll second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries. At this time, I'll just take a minute and recognize our donors who were listed under consent B. There was a donation to Del Rio High School athletic trainers from Amistad Medical Professionals in the amount of $960. There was a donation to the Lamar Elementary campus from Target in the amount of $47.06. So our thank you to both of those donors for their support of those activities. 7:15, and we are now on the agenda item 8, discussion action items. Discussion action item A, consideration to approve disposal of surplus personal property during the 2012-2013 fiscal year. Presenters, Ms. Yannicane Valdez and Paula Johnson.
Good evening again. Based on some information I received from TASBO, it is my understanding that the Texas Education Code 11.151, we need to request approval for the school year to have surplus sales. And our plan is to have them at this point on a quarterly basis. And I don't know if Ms. Paula would like to add anything to that. Okay. Last year, we did have one sale, and I believe it was presented at the June board meeting. And we had a large, it was probably the only sale we had last year, and it was we collected approximately $33,000 in surplus revenue.
approximately how much?
33,000.
33,000. Ms. Lozano has a question.
It's got good peripheral vision. How are those announced, or how does that happen?
I beg your pardon?
How are those announced? I mean, how do people know?
We
that-
advertise them in the Del Rio News Herald once a week for 2 weeks. We put it on the web, and then just word of mouth, throughout the district and throughout the community. We have a lot of vendors in the community that call us periodically and ask us when we're anticipating to have one. And, if we know the date, we let them know and they come pick up a form. And if not, we tell them just to check back with us and we'll let them know, but to watch the newspaper. But we do advertise.
And what happens to the items that don't sell? I mean, are they
If
disposed of?
before we put anything in a surplus sale, first of all, we take pictures of it, and using the web, we offer it to all the other campuses and organizations in the district. And if nobody in the district wants it, then we put it on the surplus sale. Once that's been offered to the public, and if it doesn't sell, then it's considered of no value and it's disposed of.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Now, last year when we earned so much, a lot of that was because we sold some old buses and had set a minimum cost on them, and they all sold for much more than we had anticipated that they would. A lot of the old furniture, the campuses don't want, and we have not a lot, but we have a couple of schools in Ciudad Acuña that come over and purchase and, buy for their schools or their churches, that type thing. But, for the most part, most of it sells.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hunt.
If not, that's gonna have a bonfire.
We're resourceful.
Other questions, comments? Okay, the recommendation.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the trustees approve the disposal of surplus personal property during the 2012-13 fiscal year, either quarterly or on a needed basis, as needed basis.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept? Mr. Chavita has motioned. Mr. Overfelt has second. All in favor by a show of hands?
Thank you.
It's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Discussion action item B, consideration to approve contract for services with Susie Yekow from Southwest Texas EMS Training for the CTE Health Science Program. Presenter, Dr. Sally Zuniga-Barrera.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rourke Ackerman, and school board members. This request is for contracted services for the CATE Health Science Program with Susie Yekow from Southwest Texas EMS Training. The contract is for approximately $13,546, $12,826 for the total course, plus $720 for the National Registry application fee. Currently, there are 9 students enrolled, and the fee is about $80 per student. The contract is provided under separate cover for your review. The contract will be paid with the approved CATE state budget. Are there any questions?
Ms. Lozano
No,
has a
just a
question.
comment. Ms. Yekow has done a fantastic job in the past, so I just want to say thanks for working with her again.
Majeski.
Other questions? Recommendation?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves for the interim superintendent to sign the contract with Susie Yekow from Southwest Texas EMS Training.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Lozano has motion. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, and our kids thank you too.
Discussion action item 8C, consideration to approve contract for services with Monica Sandoval for the Del Rio High School and Del Rio Middle School Color Guard Program. Presenter, Mr. Juan Nanez.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Ackerman,
President, Mr. Garabedian, and all board members. I come before you this request for the contracted service of Monica Sandoval for the Del Rio High School and Del Rio Middle School color guard. She's been working with our school district in previous years for about the past 4 years. This is a field of expertise that none of our musical staff is trained for, and she will, like I said, will be helping, teaching the middle school and the high school. So does anybody have any questions?
Questions, Mr. Chavita has a question.
This person works for the school district?
No, sir. She's contracted outside, and then we're bringing her in to do the other classes.
And how many hours
It's she teaches 1 hour at the high school, 1 hour at the middle school every day, and she also travels with the organizations to competition. I do want to say that under her guidance, even last year, our color guard won first place in their competitions. So,
Ms. Lozano has a question.
Mr. Nunez, in the past, has this been brought to the board, or, I don't remember seeing
This-
it at all. I mean, I'm glad she's done a great job for us.
this is the first time that we actually had to bring it to the board. It was notified by our our CFO, Yana Kani.
But she's been doing it for 3 years, you said?
4 years, and we've had different other individuals in the past. Even when I was a band director for 20 some odd years, we've always had somebody in the past helping us, assisting us, that, and trying to also increase the enrollment and trying to get more kids involved in all areas, since our fine arts has been expanding quite a bit.
How many kids are they?
Right now at the high school we have 17 students, and at the middle school we have 13. And our enrollment will continue to increase as we have her now also going to the middle school.
Other questions? Good. Okay. Sir, your recommendation?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve for the interim superintendent to sign the contract with Monica Sandoval.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept? Mr. Overfelt has made a motion. Mrs. Lozano has seconded. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item 8, discussion action item 8D, consideration to approve contract for services with Dr. Nancy Amodi to provide mental health assessment and evaluation services in accordance with Head Start program performance standards. Presenter, Ms. Linda Webb.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman. In your packet, you have a contract for Dr. Nancy Amody. This is a revised contract. The contract was originally signed back in April as part of our grant, and this is the first time it comes to the board. It's never come to the board. Dr. Amody has provided services for the Head Start program, I want to say, for at least 15 years. The reason the revision came about was when she came in October, we noticed that the amount that she had initially indicated did not include the travel cost on there. Even though it stated in the contract the total includes the travel, she noticed that it did not include the travel. So the travel had to be added to the original cost for a total of $8,569.80. The original contract, and I don't think that you have a copy of it, but I do. I do. Now, when we noticed that, we made an adjustment, or she made an adjustment to the contract to indicate the total, which brought it up to $8,569.80. Now, knowing that this contract was coming before the board, anything that comes before the board has to go first through our policy council. So we did have a meeting with the policy council on the 11th of this month, and that was also presented to the policy council to make that correction. And for your information, since this has never come to the board before, I have two of Dr. Amadei's resumes that I will give to Dr. Keys, and they'll go down to Dr. Ackerman, and I'll start with Mr. Chavita, and they will go down to Mr. Garabedian, so you can also have that for your information. So are there any questions?
Ms. Lozano has another question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's really just clarification. How did that 346 children, is that your maximum?
346 is the total number of Head Start students that we are granted allotted. She serves all students on the campus, which we have a total of 534, including the migrants. She does not serve the migrant students, though. But every student that is in our campus, when she comes, she will see them. Now, I will tell you that even though this is an estimate that she puts in her contract, I will tell you that last year, she did not charge us the total amount. Last year, because she comes in twice a year, the first time it was $3,836.14, and the second time she came in was $3,974.21. So if students are not in at that time and she doesn't see them, she's not going to charge us for them. But we have to have a contract stating more or less what a guesstimation would be.
Other questions, comments? No, I think we're good. Okay, the recommendation.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve for the interim superintendent to sign the contract with Dr. Nancy Amadei.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motion, Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
That brings us to agenda item 8E, consideration to approve contract for services with Ismael S. Cantu to assist with district improvement campuses. Presenter, Dr. Mary Gonzalez Ramirez.
Good evening, Mr. President and Dr. Ackerman and all board members. I come before you to ask for your consideration to approve the contract with Dr. Ismael Cantu specifically for Del Rio Freshman School. Del Rio Freshman was rated academically unacceptable. The Texas Education Agency requires us to have a service provider approved by TA serving and assisting Del Rio Freshman School specifically. He's very knowledgeable with school improvement. He helped us at Del Rio High School. He was assigned by TA to assist with Del Rio High School, and we have had Dr. Cantu for the past few years here working with us in our district. His daily rate is $450 and not to exceed $6,750 plus meals, mileage, and lodging reimbursement. And the contract will be paid with the approved federal funds Title I budget.
Questions? Okay. Recommendation?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the interim superintendent to sign the contract with Ismael S. Cantu.
For the recommendation, is there a motion? Mr. Overfelt has motion. Mr. Mesa, you seconded, correct? Mr. Mesa has seconded. All in favor, by a show of hands? It's It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Discussion action item 8F, consideration to approve the revised memorandum of understanding for the Race to the Top grant with the San Felipe Del Rio CISD, Eagle Pass ISD, United ISD, and Laredo ISD. Presenter, Mr. John Orozco.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Acker, members of the board, were there any questions over the memo of understanding? There was on page...
Yeah, what was the revision, Mr. Orozco?
On page 7, points of contact. United designated Edie to be the point of contact for the consortium. And then there's just the two on the top, modifications and duration and termination, are just things that Joe put in there that assure our safety of those things. And then if you look at the signature page, we've just added the local teacher association, and I've been working with Vanjie, and she's been working with the other representatives and visiting with the Laredo and United representatives also.
We have questions for Mr. Orozco? No questions? Okay, the recommendation?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the revised memorandum of understanding MOU for the Race to the Top District grant as presented.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Chavita has motioned. Ms. Lozano has seconded. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries. Discussion action item 8G, consideration to approve the food allergy manual as per board policy FFAF. Local, again presenting Mr. John Orozco.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, we have had the policy manual on the board FFA local as a requirement so that we could adopt a policy handbook so we could start putting those procedures in place at the campus level. Are there any questions? It's a pretty big item.
It's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information.
Now, on this one, on this manual, this is the second time that you've had it. And I had sent it out earlier, and it was a combination of S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D
And NASB.
Who put this manual together.
Mr. Mesa has a question, I believe.
I have some questions. I know I kind of thumbed through it, and there's a lot of information, yes. But it mentioned, for example, that there would be training for bus drivers.
Yes, sir.
And then I didn't see anything about substitutes, because again, when you go on field trips and so forth. And this is an item that's personal to me because I have a granddaughter with food allergies. And just a splash of milk can cause a reaction, and the EpiPen and all that. I saw something having to do with the EpiPen, by the way. It said that nurses had to have at least two because of the, I think, 4-hour difference, because, if you administer one 4 hours later, the effects are gone.
I can tell you on the preliminary work that we've done is that there are going to be guidance sheets with EpiPen use in a handbook. There will be a training procedure, and I know we're looking at some online education as far as food allergies, and then there will be some one-on-one allergy contact as far as an assistance team at the campus, because that's what's one of the requirements of that. And so we'll be meeting with the nurses to do those things. And then there's going to be like a procedure manual where the handouts will be in Spanish and English. And so as the parents come in, they'll be able to get those things. And so some of those things have already been drafted, and they're at translation now. And hopefully within about another 6 weeks, I'll be coming with the entire manual for you to see.
So then there would be special training for substitutes?
It's a requirement, and so I know Mr. Casillas and I have been discussing, and he's talking to Atomic Learning to see if they'll be coming out with a training unit that we can assign teachers, and it emails in to it, and if they don't record it, then the system continues to remind them or kicks them back out, so then we can have an administrator make sure that their campus is in
And
compliance.
one other thing, John, and there's some books that have been written, and I think are important, especially for elementary students, so that they can understand, what food allergies are. And it's pretty much in vocabulary and, wording that I can give you references, by the way. Because again, it helps students to understand that sometimes these students that have food allergies cannot even sit with them sometimes because of the proximity of dairy products or whatever it might be. And so they have to understand that they're not in isolation, but it's being done as a precautionary measure. And the same thing goes when food items are given at school that they can't participate with, and, that at least a note be sent home so that something can be sent from home so they won't be left out.
And we've prepared, those things have been, they're at the printer getting translated so that we can send them home and notify parents of some of the things, and then when they'll be having meetings. So I think you're going to have a pretty comprehensive plan. It's surprising, there's about 6,000 deaths a year on food allergies, on the research that I've read. I mean, it's
And I'm glad that it's part of the 504, because again, there needs to be a plan. I think, where the most mistakes are made is when they transition from, let's say, elementary to, another school, or even, from one elementary to another.
even
And
just all of our transitions that we have.
thank you for having
But
us.
we'll be coming back hopefully within 6 weeks to have that.
Mr. Overfelt has a question.
Going back to the buses that Mr. Mesa was talking about, because I was reading through here, about having an EpiPen in a safe, appropriate, secure, yet accessible location. Because, let's face it, even though there's no eating policies on the buses, it happens and stuff. So we're gonna be able to have an EpiPen on every bus in our district.
That
our
would,
yellow
that is
buses?
going to be something that when we meet with our nursing staff and the cabinet, then we'll start talking to transportation and seeing how we're going to do those things, because those things will have to be stowed and locked, and there's heat requirements, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Variables.
details to go into those things. And so really we've been aware of it, and I know that before we've adopted the book, but once we have it adopted now from the requirement, that we're going to hit another stage of actually having a district handbook, and it's going to be very formulated to what we do and the procedures we follow.
And continue on, because it talks about training the bus drivers in the ability to recognize that and implement in the event of an emergency, how to deal with that. And around town, that's great, but when we go out of town, now apparently we're using charter companies for everything, to go out of town for all the sports now. And it says here, require bus companies and personnel be trained on local EMS. Well, when we're pulling buses from all over the state of Texas to bus our kids, how are we going to make sure that they're all trained?
Well, I can tell you that Mr. Nanez has done a great job with that, and then also Ruby Adams is that we're having staff members, even in those UIL and extracurricular activities, are CPR trained, even though in some of those situations it's not a requirement, that we're making sure that we at least have. And I think that what you're going to see is a follow-up. If we have a bus or a charter, we're going to have somebody on staff that can recognize that and then have that equipment with them. And so I think that we're moving in that direction eventually. And I think that you'll probably even see having a defibrillator eventually traveling on some of those things.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Other questions or comments? Okay, the recommendation, Mr. Orozco.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the Safe School and Ready to Learn, a comprehensive policy guide for protecting students with life-threatening food allergies manual.
Per the recommendation, is there a motion? Ms. Lozano has motioned, Mr. Chavita has seconded. A show of hands, all in favor? It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 8H. Consideration to approve the implementation of the Teachscape Pilot PDAS Teacher Appraisal System for Del Rio Middle School staff. Presenter, Dr. Jorge Garza and Jennifer Torres.
Good evening, Mr. Garambiti and Dr. Ekman and other school board members. I'm Jennifer Torres. I'm assistant principal at Del Rio Middle School.
In your board packet, you'll find some information regarding the pilot PADAS evaluation tool. Del Rio Middle School, as you know, is a TIPS grant recipient, and as part of the TIPS grant, we're required to implement a new evaluation system. So basically, TEA has determined that all TIPS grant campuses will implement one of two different evaluation systems. TEA has contracted with two different companies, TAP and Teachscape. Del Rio Middle School has been signed to Teachscape. We will be implementing the Framework for Teaching Evaluation instrument. This instrument consists of basically 4 domains. 1 is planning and preparation, 2, the classroom environment, 3 is instruction, and 4 is professional responsibilities. Administration will be required to complete multiple observations and collect data, which must be shared with the companies contracted with TEA. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Mr. Overfeld had a question, and then Mr. Mesa.
So by going to this pilot one, they're not going to have to complete the regular PADAS?
That is accurate.
Mr. Mesa.
I'm looking at the wording, and I like what I see in regard to, I mean, it's spelled out, you know, very clearly, you know, what is expected of that teacher, the framework. And so I think it's going to help everyone at that campus to become a better teacher. Because I see, I mean, it's excellent. I hope, I mean, I wish every principal would have this copy because it gives them valuable information as to what specific areas, what is it that you're going to see in an effective classroom. And I think, you know, it's very well written. I looked at the wording and I thought, I wish I would have had that when I was still a principal because it helps a whole lot. And I think it's a good instrument. So I'm pleased.
Other questions? Nope. Okay. Ms. Lozano has a question.
The packet information, Ms. Torres, showed the Texas framework for teaching evaluation project. And it showed 2011, 2012 milestones. So obviously, this whole process hasn't been rolled out, hasn't been implemented. So has it been presented to all teachers yet, or not?
Not at this time. We have the teachers have to go through an orientation, which they will go online and do so. And I've contacted, her name is Carlene Green, and she's going to be our contact through the region. And basically, once the teachers have gone through that orientation, she comes out to our campus and will continue training with the teachers. They'll get a brief overview, kind of like the administration did, and we're going through different trainings and certifications, as we have to be certified. And the teachers will also go through those orientations, and then she'll come out to our campus and train them.
So will they be almost fast-tracked because they have missed the entire month of September? They're starting mid to late October already?
Okay, say it one more time. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just looking at
the timeline?
Right.
Okay, that timeline is actually can be modified. When we went to training to San Antonio Independent School District, and we were kind of guests in that training because we were notified kind of in a late manner, okay? So when we went there, San Antonio Independent School District has actually been implementing this for a little bit of, last year, and I believe this is their second year. So that's their timeline. And we've already, like I said, I've contacted Carlene Green to say, okay, now where do we need to be, et cetera, and getting the teachers. And so we're like hoping to try to get the teachers through their web orientation by the end of this month so that we can start looking in November to get them in. When we go into observations, there's 4 domains, but we can only look at 2 of them while we're in the classroom. Okay? Right. And there's a reflective live training too, which is talking about through walkthroughs, et cetera. We have not been trained on that, but we're getting into that process. You're welcome.
Other questions? Comments? If there's no further questions, the recommendation?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the implementation of the Teachscape Pilot PADAS teacher appraisal system as presented.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motioned. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Agenda item 8I. Consideration to approve the following custodial positions due to increased square footage of new construction at each elementary school, funding source 199 local, custodian Ruben Chavita Elementary School, custodian Lamar Elementary School. Presenter, Dr. Patty McNamara.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, members of the board. Well, as we all know, exciting things are happening at Ruben Chavita Elementary and Lamar with the new construction. New construction being classroom space at Lamar and the library, at Ruben Chavita Elementary. Well, with that new construction becomes increased square footage for our custodial staff to clean and maintain on a day-to-day basis. So Mr. Limon and Ms. Hernandez at Chavita and Lamar respectively have both requested additional staff members, one at each of those schools, an additional custodian. Upon receiving those recommendations, I forwarded those to our Executive Director of Maintenance and Operations, which is Mr. Mike Salinas. He has reviewed it according to our district custodial staffing plan and has agreed with the recommendation. The recommendation then was forwarded to our cabinet for review. At this time, it is a recommendation of the administration that the new custodial positions be approved as presented this evening.
Questions? Mr. Mesa has a question.
Patty,
Yes.
would this come, the funding, where would it come from?
We would take that out of 199, and I'd look at some positions that we have that have not been filled so that we can work within our budget.
So that amount has been budgeted for other positions, and so it might have to eliminate some positions.
Correct. If we haven't filled them, we would use that money versus dipping into the fund balance.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? No questions about positions or square footage or the level of cleanliness or any of that? Okay. If there's no questions, we have the recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of administration that the two new custodial positions, one at Ruben Chavita Elementary, one at Lamar Elementary, be approved as presented this evening.
For the recommendation, is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motion, Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor, by show of hands? Unanimous, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion action item J, consideration to approve the revised stipend listings for the 2012-2013 school year. Presenter, once again, Dr. Patty McNamara.
All right. Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, members of the board. This evening in your packet, you have four sheets that refer to each of our stipends by category. The first one is campus organization, the second one is the district-wide, the third is athletics, and the fourth is substitute. These have been brought before you as part of the budget process and were already approved. However, during the implementation phase of our budget, some recommendations from various campus principals have been recommended to administration. And so what I'd like to do is go through each one of these 4 pages and just highlight the changes. They are very minor. The first one in the campus organizations, and by the way, the corrections are all in red, okay? For campus organizations, the only change there is on page 2, which would be your red spreadsheets. It's organizations by campus, page 2. The change here is a recommendation of the freshman principal to delete Pep Squad and cheerleader, $1,100, and add the S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D sponsor for $1,375. The S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D sponsor, that amount is the same as the Bells co-sponsors for a point of reference at the high school. The other one is a recommendation by Ms. Gomez at Del Rio Middle School, because they don't really have a pep squad, they have a pom-pom squad sponsor. And so what we did there is just duplicated that $880 for the freshmen and for the Del Rio Middle School. So that's the campus, and those are the only changes that our principals would like to make to the campus organization. The district-wide, the only change there is on page 2, adding fine arts to the department heads. Fine arts had inadvertently been left out, so the recommendation has been to add it, and that's on the purple spreadsheet, district-wide. Athletics, they are highlighted in red. One is assistant high school coach football, and the football running and passing offensive coordinator. Now, let me explain this one. In November of 2011, the previous board had already made these, or excuse me, approved those changes in November of 2011. However, when I was working on the salary matrices and things, and in this particular form, during the budget process, my staff inadvertently left those off, and they picked up the one that was approved in August. So that was a mistake on behalf of my department, in which those were not added. But there are no additional changes. These were changes last November that were already implemented. So we'd like to correct that for the record. And then the last one is a very minor change as well. It's on page 4 of your green spreadsheet. Under planning, miscellaneous stipends, planning meetings, preparation time for presenters, and staff development presenters and facilitators. Those two there, all we did was switch them. Okay, we just turned them upside down, basically changed the positions. The $32 per hour was for staff development presenters, the one that you approved a couple of months ago, and the 200 half-day and 400 full-day, that was for the planning meetings. But in visiting with staff, we feel it's better presented by switching those numbers. And those were the only changes that we're presenting this evening. Again, they are minor. One is an oversight. One is to add sapphires. One is pom-pom squad. So we have the correct squad and the correct title and the correct amounts. The oversight was on athletics, and just switching those other two amounts for the C&I department under Dr. Garza. And those are the changes that administration at this time is recommending.
Ms. Lozano has a question.
Yes, Ceci.
On the sapphire and the pom-pom,
Yes, ma'am.
are those considered fine arts, or are they considered PE?
Those are considered fine arts.
Fine arts.
Fine arts. However, this is, are you talking about the class or the stipend? Because they are different. The stipend would be extracurricular,
Okay,
can be given to,
and credentialing doesn't apply to extracurricular.
that's correct, that's correct. If it's the class and it's at freshman, it's a dance class, as per Ms. Garcia. She's given fine arts credit.
I'm concerned about those. Okay.
But these are solely just the extracurricular stipend listings.
Other question? Mr. Orfeld has a question.
A couple, in keeping with Ms. Lozano's thing there on the sapphires and the pep squad and all that. Are we doing, because I'll get asked, are we doing away with cheerleading entirely at the freshman campus? Now it's only going to be something you can do at high school?
It is my understanding that that's the way it was and has been, that they're at high school. They're together.
Okay. Second question would be on the, by position, the fine arts department being added in. So, say for example, Delaware Middle School, where they have a fine arts department now, whoever has been heading that will get a stipend? Is that what?
That would be correct.
Okay.
What I would do if the board approves it this evening, I'd contact the principals to find out how many they have in the group, because it is by individuals, not including themselves, how many PUs they have. Yes, and then we would definitely pay those individuals for this year. Yes.
Mr. Mesa has a question.
Yes,
Yeah, I have a
Mr.
question.
Mesa.
So the overall cost, how much is this going to add to the stipend overall amount?
I do not have a breakdown at this time. The Sapphire, as an example, would be for 2 people. The pom-pom is 1. The coaching staff, those are 1 for each of those. And I'm not sure about what it would cost for C&I, the minor change there of just switching. It's a minor change. And the
But-
fine arts, I would have to get a listing.
Right, and that question was, maybe I should word it differently. The
Okay.
amount that was budgeted under stipends, is that going to change?
Yes, by adding these here.
Okay, and so would that be 199 as well?
It would.
But not to add to the fund balance?
Right, again, I'd have to take a look at what we have in there that we are not using at this time.
Mr. Chavita has
be
a
able to
question.
afford that.
Doc, who decides on this stipends? How do you arrive, is it recommendations from whom? As far as I'm talking about all the stipends, the coaches, everybody, because do you go by the numbers, who's supervised, by the importance? How do you arrive at this?
Well, these stipends have been in place for quite some time, okay? Periodically, I've been asked by superintendents to take a look at stipends across the state during the budget process. These stipends here have not been revised in quite some time.
The reason I'm saying this is because we need to make some changes on this. I think there's a lot of discrepancies, or maybe variations between what they do and how many kids they take care of and all that type of thing. I think we really need to look into it. Because every year they bring them to us, and there's not a whole lot of changes. And, but as I look at them, and I hate to be singling out anybody, but it seems like, there's no really reason why so-and-so is making more money than others and that type of thing. I just don't, I can spend a month looking at it and still won't come up with a real reasoning that will tell us, hey, listen, the reason that X coach is making more than this other people is because they spend more time, that type of thing. Getting back to what I was asking about the new person that we had.
Yes, sir.
How many hours do you spend on it? And I don't think that we're basing this on that. There's no way.
So the item is simply for the revisions, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How time sensitive is this to be passed tonight? I think that's kind of what I'm hearing. Maybe people want more time. How time sensitive is it? Does it have to be passed tonight? Can it wait?
It can wait.
A week or
It's up to
two?
you.
Dr. Ackerman?
It's up to you.
They seem to have more questions than their answers. So at this time, I'm going to motion that we table the item to the next available board meeting, which is probably the hearing special meeting that we'll have in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
The 29th.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We have a concern because if we do wait, we have a teacher right now who has 54 students at the high school,
Okay.
S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D. And the person that might be recommended to come up
Okay.
to relieve her needs to know whether this stipend is going to be approved or not. So, that's the only concern is that right now we have 54. If we can have a way where somebody else can be helping that teacher, then we're okay with the wait. So that teacher right now needs help because she has 54 students in her class.
I move the table it. And get a substitute or somebody to help her in the interim.
That's fine, as long as we have someone there.
Well, we can
Why
put
they
it,
change so late in the year? Contracts are out. What was reading? Maybe I didn't hear it.
Something was inadvertently left out.
For the athletics, that was inadvertently left out because it was already board approved last November. So that was just an oversight that was detected, and I wanted to make that correction. On the Sapphires, it was never brought to my attention last year that we needed to have a Sapphire stipend, the cheerleading, it just wasn't ever brought to my attention. So as we're looking at things, we're making those corrections and revising as needed. So that's reason for the agenda item this evening.
Mr. Yanez, do you have something to add?
I would like to add to this, in the position. Yes, we had an increase of enrollment in our program. Actually, we had about 80 students to one teacher. Okay, so then, going back to that individual does need the assistance immediately. We also have some students that are not being right now even able to even start the program at the middle school, but we're still hoping to get some additional help for those students at the middle school that we have that pom-pom squad. So if there's anything that we could do, at least for those two positions, the S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D and the pom-pom, I mean, those are immediate needs. It's not something that we can leave them for a long week. It's actually, it goes further than just having a stipend. It also goes with having a parental concerns and all that. It's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Other comments or questions? What was the recommendation, or is the recommendation?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the 2012-2013 revised stipends as presented this evening.
Is there a motion?
I move that we table this issue.
Mr. Mesa has seconded Ms. Lozano's motion to table the issue, and we're tabling till,
The next meeting.
okay, their motion is to table until the next available meeting. It's been motion and seconded. Yep.
Sorry, but are we gonna be able to get them the help that they need, the other body that they need, while we discuss this matter?
A substitute, I think, Mrs. Garcia said that would suffice for the interim.
Yes, Mr.
The
Yanez?
substitute would work probably at this level at the freshman, but at the middle school, no. We can't have students work after school with a substitute. They don't have anybody as well at this present time.
Would you repeat it, Mr. Yanez? Mr. Chavita didn't hear you.
Allá tiene una maestra en freshman, pero they don't have a teacher at middle school. Allá they can hire a substitute. Have to.
Ms. Brandon Berger was doing three responsibilities, okay? And right now, even the middle school, that she's not able to teach those middle school students because she's also she's having to do the varsity sapphires at the freshman level, for which they're right now in season with the football season. These kids over here at the middle school are in season right now and do not have a sponsor. And so she cannot go to do those middle school and the high school. The schedule doesn't permit. It's just too much work for one individual. And on top of that, it's a first-year teacher. And it's really not being fair to that individual at this time. That's why we have approached the HR office and the superintendent, and as well as the principals, everybody involved, that we need immediate assistance to remedy this situation. And please consider this before you make your final decision. On behalf of the Sapphires and the pom-pom squad of the middle school, I mean, we can have discussions of other concerns that have been arising, and I knew this was going to be happening down the road, and it can really snowball on us and even go to bigger issues. So a substitute does not work for at least the middle school. And even at the high school, because at the freshman, because they're required to travel, and they're having all the girls having to go with them, and all the rehearsals that are after school as well. And we've tried different schedules before school, after school. So we do get this help. I will say, this will remedy the problems that we're having right now. And we're looking at a stipend of, if you look at it on a scale of per month, it's nothing.
What is it?
The stipend for the pom-pom, we're recommending $880, which would be the same as the cheerleader, I believe, the cheerleader. and per year, and the Sapphire $13.75, which is the same as the Bells at the high school. So they'd be exactly the same.
Credentialing issues do not come into play here.
Credentially, this is extracurricular
Under fine arts.
under fine arts. Yes, ma'am. At freshman, at Del Rio Middle School, it's PE. They don't offer credit for fine arts at middle school.
So it's PE.
At Del Rio Middle School. And then for credit, for dance credit at high school, freshman. Yes, ma'am.
But that's for the class, that's not.
But that's just for the class, not extracurricular. Correct.
Other questions? Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to table, and the way that would work, that can be voted, and if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, there can still be a motion to accept and second. So the question on the table is that it's been motioned by Ms. Lozano and seconded by Mr. Mesa to table the item until the next available board meeting. All in favor by a show of hands? 1, 2, 3. 3 in favor. All opposed by a show of hands? Okay, 4 opposed. The recommendation originally was?
The administration recommends the 2012-2013 revised stipend schedule as presented, be approved as presented this evening by administration.
Is there a motion? Mr. Overfelt has motioned. Is there a second? Ms. Haynes has seconded. By a show of hands, all in favor? 2, 3, 4. Motion carries.
Thank you.
I think there still are questions, and that troubles us all. But thank you for your forthrightness, all of you. Okay, that brings us to discussion action item. Sorry, I think I've lost my place. K, I believe. Consideration to approve contract for services with the Education Service Center, Region 15, to assist with school improvement canvases for the 2012-2013 school year. Dr. Mary Gonzalez from it is presenting.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, and board members, I come before you to ask your consideration to approve contracts with the Service Center, Region 15, for the campuses and school improvement. The Texas Education Agency requires the campuses and school improvement to receive professional development, apportioned from the Service Center. The professional development will be paid out of Title I funds, school improvement funds, their set-aside campus funds out of Title I, and the district set-aside out of Title I for professional development. The campuses looked at the different options that the Service Center offered to them, and they, as with their campus leadership teams, they each have a campus leadership team determined on the following topics for their professional development. The campus snapshot provides them with an analysis of their campus, and the instructional coaching provides them with a person there to work with their teachers, to do some planning, to observe the teaching, and to model teaching also. The Formative Assessment Foundation provides the campuses with information on approaches to use with students on how to read the data and how to hopefully close the gaps. And of course, the ELL strategies. All the campuses were interested in providing, in the Service Center, providing more training on ELL strategies for all the campuses in school improvement. Any questions at this time?
Mr. Overfelt has a question.
It talks about the several of them selected a campus snapshot there that goes in and looks at the student needs, the students it serves, observation surveys, interviews with parents, students, staff, et cetera there. Can we do a snapshot for the entire district that
Ye-
went in and looked at some of these things as well?
The snapshot was for the, specifically Del Rio Middle School, after they received the TIPS grant. And then a year before that, a few years ago, it was at sixth grade campus, San Felipe Memorial Middle School.
Okay, but I mean, when I came onto the board back in May, I was given a snapshot that was done of the entire district. That was done by region 15 or 13, that looked at these same things here, or looked at the climate within the school, et cetera, where they went to all the districts, et cetera, and stuff like, or all the schools within the district. And we paid, I don't know how much we paid for it, but we paid for it. But now they want to do it again at $10,000 a pop for several campuses?
It will be campus by campus. It will not be a district. This is a discussion that the principals had with Mrs. Gomez at Del Rio Middle School, who just had the snapshot, the campus snapshot at her campus. She did recommend it. She said it was very helpful to her and to her campus in helping her get started and moving in the right direction.
Okay, second question. These schools here are because of AYP,
Correct.
correct? When AYP first came out and we were told about it in a meeting, a board meeting or a special thing, I remember we were sitting down here when we were being explained to it, or it was being explained to us, and I may have heard it wrong, but I just want clarification. I was told, or I heard that because since North Heights hit certain markers, even though they fell into AYP, we weren't going to have to pay Region 15 money because we hit certain markers.
And that's correct. North Heights is not required. However, North Heights principal with her CLT team decided that they were interested in these professional development activities. And you are correct about North Heights. But they are required to provide professional development. We have to set aside 10% of all the Title I funds and 10% of their campus, and it has to be on professional development.
Right, I understand that. I don't see you going in and you're gonna get a lot of the same information out of the snapshot that the overall District 1 looked at, because it would have hit all the different campuses as well. So I just don't feel throwing 10, 20, 30 something $1,000, $40,000 for something that we already paid for is a good, but they've made that decision, and hopefully next year, when we're back here, they clear AYP, because I just don't agree with going in and doing another snapshot after we just spent a lot of money overall.
I think the campus feels, for example, I know that was one of the questions that I asked Mr. Ramos, and he said, you know, when we did have the campus snapshot, and they had it done a few years ago, he said, it's a new administration, we have a lot of new teachers, and he and his team felt the information would be beneficial.
Can I ask a question of a principal? What's here on this as to why they went with
Tips.
Sunshine? Ms. Medida, I noticed on yours there at Calderon, correct?
Yes, sir.
That you're going with the instructional coaching.
Yes, sir.
There, why do you believe the coaching over a snapshot?
Because I see.
Yes,
Yes,
approach
come up
the
here.
podium, please.
There's a several list of professional development items that we could choose from. Some was campus culture, which we had already began last year and working on, so that's done. Working on certain strategies, formative assessment should also be there as well. And that's strategic questioning, higher order thinking, as well as instructional coaching. We cannot get better in the classroom unless our teachers know what's expected. I can give them as much professional development as I can. I can feed them everything, send them to Dallas, Houston, wherever I want. But if they don't know how to implement that in the classroom, then it's no good. So I opted for instructional coaching from Region 15, or with my Title I money, so I can work on the educational part, the higher end of it, if at all. And with that, then I can give them anything, and they should be able to do it at 100%. So that's why I chose that. Any other questions?
No, that'd be it. I'm just curious as to why the different ones, so, thank you.
And can I just add, the campus snapshot, several of us are new to campuses. We do our own, say, surveys, but until an outside entity as Region 15 can come in and evaluate what we're doing, because we think we're doing it right. We do. So that's why we opted for that type of staff development, for the big picture. Because we don't know. When we started our campuses, we weren't given some information that was given as this is your problem. We just looked at our own data and tried to, with our needs assessment, tried to see what is our need, develop our campus improvement plan. So everybody's a little different.
Thank you. Other questions? No? If there's no further questions, Dr. Ramirez, were you finished?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the interim superintendent to sign the contract with the Education Service Center Region 15.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motioned. Mr. Chavita has seconded. Show of hands, all in favor? It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to discussion action item L, consideration to approve resolution concerning high-stakes standardized testing of Texas public school students. As probably most of you know on the board, this has been circulating, so to speak, throughout the districts in the state. Something like 80% of the districts in the state have signed it. That's like 800 or more districts. It's pretty straightforward as a resolution. It's 2 pages long. It also references the new vision for public education in Texas, which was a TASA publication. I don't know who is familiar with it. I have a copy from some graduate work I did at ASU a while back. If anyone wants to read it, you're certainly welcome. But this is what they're referring to as the Creating New Vision for Public Education in Texas, which is referenced in the resolution. I took the liberty of calling some of our neighboring districts. Like, for example, I talked to Buddy Wolfenbarger in Comstock the other day, and Comstock ISD has signed it. There's also a website where you can see who has signed the resolution. I talked to Rick Lesh, superintendent in Uvalde. They signed it. He and his board, or the board signed it rather, a while back. I wasn't able to get a call back from Eagle Pass, so I'm not sure. I couldn't find them on the website either. I don't know that it, really is that important to know who in our region, but just kind of in general, 80% have done this. So I put it on here as a discussion action item. It's certainly something we can discuss now and possibly agree to do, or it's something we could take a little bit more time to look at. You might want to read through it, kind of check around, get a good sense of what it is. It's something that is used for political advocacy, showing the legislature that it's not just a handful of schools, but the majority of schools are trying to bring this to the attention of the legislature and to others. So some discussion.
I have one question. Robert, Robert Scott, Commissioner of Education, that's for the state of Texas or for
This is TEA,
TEA?
it's a state issue.
Has, that the same gentleman that was at TASB when we were in, or has that changed? The new Commissioner of Education?
No, it's changed, yeah.
So that would have to be stricken there, Robert Scott, we put the new name in?
Well,
It's changing.
she'll Google it for us.
Well, I don't know that the new commissioner.
Yeah, that's a good point. What Dr. Ackerman's trying to clarify, what Mr. Overfelt's asking, is the statement in question is the second one where it says, whereas we commend Robert Scott, Commissioner of Education, for his concern about the overemphasis of high-stakes testing that has become, quote, a perversion of its original intent, and for his continuing support of high standards and local accountability. So, he made that comment when he was Commissioner of Education, so it's not like,
So it just follows with
yes,
him?
yeah, the current, it's not like you can substitute the current commissioner because he didn't say that.
Just wanted to make sure.
I mean, personally and professionally, I don't take the resolution lightly. I was unable to find out if there's like a time deadline. I don't think there is. We certainly could take a little time to read through it and bring it back in a week or two, because we do have a hearing coming up for the first rating and probably a special to go along with some things that'll need action. Because I think it is it's a serious document on behalf of the board. So, other comments, questions? Mr. Mesa?
I think it's a very serious document in the sense of advocacy, and for us to, follow along with the rest of the districts in saying that, we have too much testing as it is now. I heard this statement at the TASB convention, and it just stuck with me that no one looks at, whether you passed an end of course exam, for college entrance, for example. No one looks at your AEIS scores when you were in elementary for college entrance. I think what's more important is GPA and how you do, once you enter college, than, passing an end of course exam. And so we have so much testing that goes on already and is taken away from the issue of educating our students, and I think we just need to sign this resolution at some point, and I'm glad that we're being allowed some time in between, because we do have some meetings coming up, and I think it's important that we do look at it and take action on it. But I just want to say that there is too much testing as it is, and I think some of this testing is just nonsense, because, again, if it were that important, why don't colleges use it as an entrance,
That's a good
requisite.
question. I don't disagree with you. I agree with you. However, I'm going to bring something up. You're probably aware, Mr. Mesa, the others may not be. When we were at TASB, there was that keynote speaker, the NYU professor that, kind of rallied against accountability and all of that stuff. And certainly, played to a receptive audience. However, take, for example, universities and colleges in this region. By this region, I mean all the southern states. They're accredited by what's called the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, commonly referred to as SACS. And as part of securing and maintaining their accreditation, they have to demonstrate what's commonly referred to as their compliance with a SAC standard 3.3.11, which paraphrased is that the institution identifies student learning outcomes, assesses student learning outcomes, and then shows evidence of improvement. So I certainly agree with you, but I think, the role of accountability is in higher ed, it is in public education. It doesn't really line up. I think, kind of that's what you're saying is true. I would also kind of caution everyone that, again, reading it, maybe taking a little bit more time, is we won't get around accountability, simply put. I mean, we know the AYP status of the schools in the district, the state accountability rankings. I think we need to be mindful of all of those things. Just ideas. I'm not, arguing or rebutting. Just something to keep in mind. I know. I think it's a good resolution. But if we want to spend a little more time thinking about it, I don't think that's a problem. Like I said, I couldn't find a deadline for it, because I think this is definitely, it's an all or nothing
At
thing.
least before the legislature meets in January.
Do we want to maybe bring it back in 2 weeks?
I'm in support of the resolution, so.
I am also.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, it needs to be
Does anybody,
all or.
do we all need?
Okay. Does anybody feel like they need a little more time to read through it? Maybe bring it back, and I think we're talking about 2 weeks, right? Probably on the first. Dr. Keyes, do you have something to?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Would you be ready to vote tonight, or are you inclined to wait a little bit?
Give one more time to reflect on it.
You'd like a little more time?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think what we're saying is I think we're generally good with it, but we do want to read through it, kind of dig around a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to motion to table until the next available board meeting, which should be in about 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
I've motioned. Is there a second? Mr. Mesa seconded. All in favor, table until such time. It's unanimous. Motion carries. We'll bring it back and give us all time to read through it and consider it more. Okay, that brings us to item M, which is discussion, consideration of employee opinion or climate survey. We call them environmental scans, where I've been involved with them at the college and university level. One of the breakout sessions I went to at the S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D, I don't know if anyone else did, there was a presentation from the president and superintendent of Waco ISD. I have that handout, again, if anyone wants to borrow it, I'd be glad to make a copy. Their experience, they were very positive about it. What they were referring to, they used an employee survey through S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D, totally anonymous, that was given to all their employees, and they use it as a management tool. It's something that has helped them to sort of pinpoint areas of concern. As an anonymous document, they feel that it kind of helps employees talk about what their issues are, maybe in certain areas or in general. I also spoke with our counterparts in Uvalde, CISD. Dr. Lesh tells me that it's a regular part of their management and planning process. They've been doing it now yearly, and one of the officers of that board also spoke highly of it. I'm kind of at a loss. I'm not quite sure if in recent memory, if this district has used one. So on that, we'd have to defer to maybe Mr. Mesa, Dr. Keyes. In your memory, has there been a
We have had one.
Dr. McManera, perhaps?
Yes, the district participated in a S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D employee opinion and climate survey in 2008.
Okay, so 4 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And that included all of the district employees, I guess it was.
Correct. Rhonda Bowman from, I believe it's Bowman from S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D was a contract person. And it was sent out anonymously to all our employees. I don't remember the response rate, but yes. It was also sent out to the community as well. It's a
Okay.
two-part thing.
Ms. Lozano, did you have a
I
comment?
was just saying, I mean, could we see the results or the findings from
Yes,
that?
I have a copy.
They're still available?
I have my copy in my office, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Other questions?
No.
Well, this is something I'm interested in exploring. I'm not advocating that we make any major motion for it at this point, but I would like to see the previous report and kind of get a feel for what it looked like. There's also the possibility of an outside entity other than S.F.D.R.C.I.S.D could do something like that. But, I certainly would, if we could, request from administration to get a copy of that report sometime in the near future. And
How long ago, you said in 2008, was that the only one? You haven't done one recently? Was there one before 2008? How often do you
That's
do
the one I
that?
remember,
Only, yeah,
and I remember communication was a big issue.
it
Well-
was correct.
go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
How often should they be done?
You know, again, and I don't want to go into a lot of detailed or take up a lot of time, but Dr. Lesh told me in Uvalde, they do them yearly. That's their plan. That's how they do it. They do it once a year. He indicated that it wasn't that expensive for what they were doing. It was like less than $4,000 or $5,000. Do you remember the cost?
It was $5,000.
It was $5,000.
I would be interested in seeing the previous ones.
Okay. Well, then, I think we want to ask for a copy of the previous so we can see it. And I'd also like to know kind of a rough cost of what it would be to implement it again through TASB, just as a starting point, starting talking point, and then we'd go from there. So if we could get that back in the near future, do we need to make a motion to do that, to ask, or can you just follow up?
Ask for more information.
Can we just get that information?
Yes, sir, I'll be happy to.
So we'll come back and look in more detail. Pretty good. Any other questions, concerns on that? Like I said, I have that handout. If anybody wants to see it, you can get a copy. Okay. That brings us to action item N, consideration to approve submission of application for the Student Success Initiative grants to schools to the appropriate headquarter authority. Presenter Dr. Jorge Garza and Patricia Brown.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, board members. This is the SSI grant. It's a non-competitive formula grant from TEA, and the funding is based on the number of students in our 5th and 8th grade, their scores on the state tests. It's to be used for intervention for any students found struggling in the core content areas, and we do have to use either the STAR state scores or an approved assessment that we have here in the district. This year, we're only going to be awarded $49,201, and we will use $42,801 for professional extra duty pay for the teachers to do tutoring either after school or on Saturdays, and then the remaining $6,400 will be used for resource materials for those teachers to use when they tutor the students. The state doesn't specify what grade levels or what content areas that we use the monies on, but we're going to have to be very particular because it's not very much money. 2 years ago, we had $136,000. 3 years ago, we had $103,000, but the state is not funding as much as they used to.
Questions? Comments? Okay, the recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the Student Success Initiative Grant to the appropriate headquarter authority for the 2012-2013 year as presented.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motion. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands. Hands up. Okay. Mr. Chavita, are you voting? Did you vote? Okay. 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 Unanimous motion carried. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 9, closed session. It is now October the 15th, 2012, 8:35 p.m. The board will now recess this open session and convene a closed meeting according with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapters D and E. Specifically, we do that under 551.071, 551.072, 551.073. Tonight, it is under 551.074, consideration to approve new hires, new assignments, district vacancies, and reassignments. Consideration to approve Director of Bilingual ESL, Director of Kate, Senior Systems Administrator, and consideration to reactivate the following position for Del Rio High School Dean of Instruction. Other items that apply generally to that is 551.076, 551.08. But again, specifically tonight, we're under 551.074 and 3 items under it. All final votes, actions, or decisions will be taken in open meeting. We're now in closed session. Okay, it's now 9:25, October 15th, 2012. The board will now reconvene in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapters D and E. No action was taken. We're reconvened into open session, which brings us to agenda item 11, discussion action items, consideration to approve new hires, new assignments, district vacancies, and reassignments. Presenter, Dr. Patricia McNamara.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, members of the board. The administration recommends the following applicants for hire in our school district. For the Cradles program, teacher, Del Rio High School, Miss Stacia E. Stidham. Registered nurse, Lonnie Green Elementary, Raquel Flores. Pre-K teacher, Irene Cardwell, Head Start program, Deanna Rayner. Additionally, the administration recommends these applicants for your consideration this evening. And I'll start with special ed teacher at San Felipe Memorial Middle, Miss Lydia Esparza. We also have ESL English teacher, Del Rio Middle School, Liza Marie Fabella. Social studies teacher at Del Rio Middle, Betha Howell. English teacher, Del Rio Middle School, Stacy Engelke. And music teacher at Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary, Miss Debbie Harris.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motion, Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
That brings us to B, under discussion action item 11, consideration to approve the following: Director of Bilingual ESL, Director of Career and Technology Education, and Senior Systems Administrator.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, members of the board, the administration at this time recommends Ms. Sandra Hernandez for our bilingual ESL director position.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Mr. Chavita has motion, Mr. Mesa has seconded. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries. Next one, Director of Kate.
Okay, yes, sir. The administration recommends Mr. Rogelio Roger Gonzalez as our new CTE director for the school district.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation, and I so move. Is there a second? Mr. Mesa seconds. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. That brings us to Senior Systems Administrator.
Okay. At this time, the administration recommends Mr. Eric Hita for our senior systems administrator, for the school district.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Chavita has motioned. I second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries. That brings us to discussion action item 11C, consideration to reactivate the following position for Del Rio High School, Dean of Instruction.
All right, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Ackerman, members of the board. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Dean of Instruction position be reactivated as presented this evening.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Mr. Mesa has motion. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the final item of the evening. I just want to take a minute and say I appreciate everyone's input tonight. I think we had very thorough discussions. I know we vented a lot of concerns and issues, and I appreciate all of it. I think it was good, and we continue in that manner. And certainly, we're all free to express them, so I appreciate everyone's work on that. So, being no further business before this board, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Mr. Overfelt has motioned. Is there a second?
Second, third, fourth.
Okay, Dr. Keyes, second. All in favor by a show of hands. It's unanimous. Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned.